All right. Today's episode is for all of those who are sick and tired of the jighead minnow. Uh, Welcome back to the Lure Lab presented by Omnia. As always, I'm your host, the captain, Andrew Full. Today we're talking about the top three pre-spawn tournament baits with our favorite guest, Wes Logan, frequent flyer on the Serious Angler Network and here on the Lure Lab. It's been a little bit since we've had him on. Be excited to talk to him, but I figured there was nobody better to get on for this one than Wes because he's fishing the MPFL and they are going with the no forward facing sonar this year for the professional league. So why not talk about three pre-spawn baits with Wes that are not the jighead minnow? So without further ado, let's get Wes on here and start chatting about this. All right, buddy, what's going on?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Having some technical difficulties. Bailey made me a new layout here, and I'm just like, I don't know where anything is.
Oh God, me on my every day-to-day life, like I don't know where anything is. I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh man, it's funny. Like when I'm frazzled on the boat, like it's the worst because things just become bomb, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to fix this later.
Yeah,
And it's like 3 weeks later, and I'm like, I don't know where anything is. Like,
literally like a bomb went off.
yeah, always because I'm like in that mode, the frantic mode. Got to catch them, go now, and I'm like, I'll deal with this later.
Yeah.
And then later turns to later, and I'm like, yeah, this ain't good. So how are you doing, man? It's been a minute. I don't think we've had you on since before summertime, right? Like,
Yeah, it's been a minute. I appreciate the favorite on here. You said I was a favorite. I'm not a favorite of much, but I'll be a favorite of this.
yeah, you're definitely a favorite of ours. I would say that. So
It means something. I appreciate that. I needed that today. No, it's everything's going good. We're about to get ramped up here. Like I said, we're about 3.5 weeks away from getting rolling on a real busy year we're gonna have. Like you said, we're fishing the elites and the MPFL. Really excited to do both of those. Fished the MPFL this past season. Was really pleased with it, along with the elites. We made the classic, made the MPFL championship. So I think all in all, I think we're gonna be fishing 15, 16, 17 tournaments probably this year, like national events, traveling. So it's going to be busy, but it's better than the alternative.
yeah, go win that MPFL championship at least, right? Is that 300 or is that 100?
Man, to be honest with you, I don't think it's 300. It may be 2 and it may be 100. I don't know.
200 still good payday.
Hey, 150, 75, we'll take it all.
Anything over 20 grand is a good payday.
About any check is a good check, to be honest. And when you get in a championship situation, you don't have any entry fee in it, so that's always a good thing. But most of the time, you get in a situation like that, you fish to win. You don't really try to fish to just get a decent amount of money. So looking forward to that one, and also the classic. But that MPFL deals, it's going to be like the whole reason we're doing this lure lab is the taking away of the front looker.
Yeah, front looker. I like how you called it that. That's good.
Yeah,
That's
what my good buddy Brandon Cobb. He's on the ARC fishing team as well. Everybody knows who Cobb is. That's what he calls it. He calls it the front looker, which I think it just cracks me up.
I mean, it's not always straight to the front, right? It can be kind of this side of the
side. No, he had to change that up a little bit because this past year, people looking out the back, out the sides, up in the sky. Hell, who knows?
Even co-anglers in some of the open trails, right, are bringing their own and looking out the back. So
yeah, I thankfully I don't fish many co-angler tournaments no more. I don't really know how I'd act if a guy brought a battery and a screen and a translucent. Like, I don't know if you could be upset with him. I mean, I can't blame him, but I don't know that I could be a co-angler in a live scoping tournament. To be honest with you, like it would be very frustrating.
Oh yeah,
it's definitely a one-man game,
especially when the boat's doing like 80. Right?
Oh yeah, wide open. Yeah, yeah. I've had some people say they're like, "Oh, just drag something on the bottom." I'm like, "It'll never hit the bottom." Like, I don't care how heavy it is. Like,
yeah. You're gonna need a 5-ounce weight and 8-pound test to have a shot. I'd like, good luck.
Yeah, you better get it down there quick and hope your boat is around a lot of fish, so he's not moving around a lot. That's all I can tell you.
Right. So, are you excited though to get to the MPFL this year without the forward-facing sonar? kid.
It'll be a little bit of back to I don't want to call it old school fishing because that really gets on my nerves because it's not old school. Like if we were going old school, we'd have pistol grips and some old ambassador reels, that are you know what I'm talking about. It's and some 25-pound big game, which I still use a little bit, but it'll just be kind of a reset a little bit. And I'm very fortunate because I live in a part of the country where you can still do very well and win tournaments fishing. Like you don't even have to have a turnograph on the Coosa River. And there is some fish that get caught on forward facing on the Coosa River, especially on the lower end. But I live more up on the upper end, so it's still a shallow water, bank beating, shallow brush pile, stuff like that, flipping docks. So I'm real fortunate to get to do that during the year. But on a national stage, getting to go to different places, and I mean, from a mindset, like it's kind of refreshing to get to think about, like us. I don't know if a lot of guys think like I do. I'm sure they do. Like if I have some downtime, I'll just be kind of looking at the schedule and just kind of processing stuff. I get to think about those tournaments a lot different than I've gotten to in the past, 3 to 4 years, because when the sonar's in play, you're like, yeah, I could probably go catch some like this, but is that going to be putting myself in a good finish being 30th doing that, or do I got to figure out where I need to go be looking with my live scope or forward facing sonar to where I have a chance to compete for a check and maybe a top 10, blah blah blah. So in that case, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Just the places they've got us going, the times of year, it's going to be for a good time. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest with everybody. I can already see it coming now. That you're gonna get the keyboard warriors. Oh, look how bad the weights are. These guys can't fish, blah blah blah. Well, it may look like the weights are bad when you're comparing them to a tournament where you can go out in the middle and catch or look at every fish in the lake. Like, I mean, the weights have consistently gone up because of live scope. Like, I would never argue that, but the weights are going to look lower without it. But that's just because you're going to have guys that figure it out and guys that don't. Where you get in a forward-facing tournament, you may not figure out anything in practice, but you're just able to survive by going and just trolling around and throwing in as many dots as you can. I've done it. Like, I just did it at Murray. I had a horrible practice. I couldn't really fish because of my neck. I just had the neck surgery 3 weeks prior, so I was like, I'm just gonna drop my trolling motor wherever I can fish out of the wind and just throw it as many dots as I can. Like, I'm not ashamed to say that. And I was able to finish 22nd, 23rd, something like that, 24th maybe.
Hey, doesn't matter how you're catching them. You just got to
Exactly. Like, if it is available to you, like if they're gonna let you use it, I don't blame you one bit. Like, do I agree with it? No. Do I got to do it? Yes. But that's a whole different argument for a different time. We beat that horse to death twice. Like he resurrected and we beat him back down again. But yeah, it's to bottle all that up. It's going to be real refreshing. And some of, like I said, some of the tournaments will be really tough. But I mean that's why they call it bass fishing.
That's why it's fishing and not catching.
Correct.
Yeah. So let's dive into it. Right. Like we're going to talk about your three best pre-spawn non-jig head minnow bait. So not in any particular order, but like, what is the first one you're going to grab in a tournament situation?
Yeah, me personally, in a pre-spawn situation, the way I like to fish, it's going to have to be a vibrating jig. It's so versatile. It imitates so many different types of forage, whether it be crawfish, shad, bluegill, perch, anything like that. And I like it for the specific reason, like I said, it's very versatile and you can throw it around so many different types of cover. It's good on Highland Reservoir. It's good around, Florida lakes. It's good up north. It's good for smallmouth, good for spotted bass, good for largemouth. And it's just a bait that's really, I mean, truthfully, it's not that hard to fish. Like if you really wanted to, you can just throw it out there and reel it back in. Like,
ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is kind of be wary around wood because they love to stick in the wood.
I will say that there is different brands that perform better and worse around certain types of structure. And everybody knows, you say vibrating jig. I mean, the chatterbait's the one you throw. You get a jackhammer, shout out to Marizo and Brett Hyde. I'm not sponsored by them, but that's the one I throw. I'm going to buy it. But I have found that the original chatterbait, like the OG one, is really good around wood. Like it comes through trees a lot better. And I don't know if it's the head design, where the blade's positioned. But if you can find them, like I've got some that are literally in the original package from, golly, dude, 2006, 2007. I don't know. They're old, but they tend to come through that stuff a little bit better.
But yeah, you're about to say the original Phoenix ones.
No. They were the actual like they were in the blue package. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, and they still make them, but like these were bought when it was like becoming a thing. Like
the original.
Yeah, has the skirt with like the little clear, it's just one skirt that folds
the rubber
over.
garment. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, I love that thing. That bait has probably caught more bass than probably the newer jackhammers, right? But
probably, I would say so. I would say that first 2 or 3 years that thing was out, it could catch every fish in the lake.
Have you tried the Evo yet? The new one?
I have.
In between, it's not bad.
Really?
It's got a nasty hook. It's like $5-6 less than the jackhammer, and like I'll throw both like through a grass flat because with the lead head or the tungsten one, right? It's gonna sound a little bit different. It's got I don't know. I think it fishes just as good as a jackhammer for $5-6 less. I started throwing them more last year.
So. Yeah. So I mean, and like people have the argument like, well, my bladed jig, my vibrating jig better than yours, blah blah blah. I mean, to be honest,
it's a vibrating.
90% of the time, if you probably threw it by him, he was going to bite any of them. I mean, but fishing's all about confidence. Like if you like this type of color, or you feel like this one's doing this, then I mean that's the one you need to throw. And truthfully, in a vibrating jig chatterbait situation, your trailer has a lot more to do with getting a bite than the actual bait itself.
Heck yeah.
And I really only have 2 that I throw a lot. I'll mix in some random stuff like paddle tail swim baits every now and then if it's a certain situation. But 90% of the time, I'm either throwing a Zoom Z-Crawl Junior on mine or the new Zoom Shimmer Shad. And the reason I like those 2, I like to throw the Zoom Z-Crawl Junior if I'm in a place that doesn't have large forage. Like if they're not feeding on like big gizzard shad or any like a big herring or anything like that. Like if you're fishing around here like on the Coos River, like you're going to be dealing with shad, crawfish, and some small bluegills. Like it's a little bit more compact design or compact bait with that Zoom Z-Crawl Junior. If I'm fishing it on the bottom, I'll fish it horizontal. If I'm kind of just throwing it around dock post or anything like that, or like around submerged grass, I'll do it vertical, kind of like a just a tail. Yeah. They really like that that Z-Crawl Junior, not the regular one, the Junior. The regular one's a little bit too long. You got to get the Junior, and it all flows perfect. Like it's not a lot of action. The way that tail does on that Crawl Junior, the blade puts off enough water displacement that that leg's not back there not just kicking so bad. It's just a real natural look to it. Now, when you lay it horizontal, like it gets with it.
It flutters. I love it.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I was gonna say, what is your setup for throwing it, and then maybe your top 3 favorite colors in the bladed jig with the trailer combo?
Yeah. So rod wise, I've got 2 in my my signature series. I have a 7.2 medium. It's called I named it Leatherman just because you can do so much with it. But I like it for like going down the bank or like throwing at specific targets. Like if I'm skipping docks, throwing at laydowns, going just down parallel and rip-rap banks or rocky banks or mud flat banks. That's a big deal here in Prespawn or anywhere in the South. Red clay, mud flat, stuff like that. Especially when if it's cold, it starts heating up. They get on stuff like that. But that's when I'll use that rod just because it's a little bit softer, it's shorter. I can kind of pinpoint my cast. And what I mean by softer is it's a real soft medium. So when one gets it, if he's only 10 or 15 foot from the boat, you're not going to pull it away from him. Like it's going to give enough. And it's actually a graphite rod. Kind of basically how I made it was it's a graphite rod with the action and the parabolic action of like a glass rod. but you have a lot more sensitivity with the graphite. So you don't have that spongy type mushy feeling you get with a glass rod, but you still have the action with my graphite. You just have the sensitivity also. If I'm fishing like, let's say I was at Gunnersville or a Sam Raven or something like that, a lot of big grass area, stuff like that, or making real long casts, I have a 7.4. It's a medium heavy. It's the same action. It's just a little bit, it's got a little bit, backbone goes up a little bit further into the rod just because you're making those long casts. If one bites it like right on the end of your cast, you got a little bit of backbone to set the hook. It's called all chatter. It's actually designed to throw a chatterbait on. But it can obviously be good for other stuff. But I don't really like going down the bank with that one because obviously it's 2 inches longer. It's not, you can't be quite as accurate. It's a little bit stiffer.
It's more of your grass flat rod if you're just bombing the bait out.
Yes, 100%. And another reason I wanted it a little bit stiffer, the tip is a little bit faster on it too, because like if you're feathering it through the grass, you're not having to wear yourself out like you would with a composite rod, like trying to rip it out. Like you can kind of, because I catch a lot of fish, like everybody's like, you need to rip that, you rip it. Well, I mean, maybe 10 years ago, yeah, that was great to get them to react. You know how many of them things have vibrated by their face by now? Like,
subtle's better.
You get a lot of bites, like you'll feel it get on the, like you'll be winding it, you'll feel it get on the grass, and you just kind of feather it up and let it break loose from it instead of just jerking it. And I feel like you can't do that with a glass rod. Now, I mean, there's some instances where a glass rod is probably a lot better. But I mean, I truthfully don't really think I could do any better than I could with mine. But that's just personal preference also. But that's just why I made the rod the way I did. But yeah, that's the two rods. And most of the time I'm going to be line wise, I'll throw it on or not throw it on. I'll throw 18 to 20 pound, just FC sniper from Sunline, just depending on what kind of cover I'm running. If I need to get a little bit deeper, I'll throw the 18, but most of the time it's the 20, just because you got a little bit more, you might be coming around, like I said, any kind of structure or getting it out of that grass, anything like that. Colors is pretty simple to me. You gotta have a white, a black and blue, and a green pumpkin something. And all of those, that's real, obviously it's real broad and pretty basic. But from what I've seen, just doing it as long as I have, if he wants a brown one, he's gonna eat a brown one. It's kind of like we were talking about which vibrating jig you want to throw. Like if you like a green one with a little bit of orange or a little bit of red or a little bit of blue or something, like that's fine. Like he's probably gonna eat any of them. Yeah. You got a black and blue one. If it's more black than it is blue, it's probably okay. The white can be a little bit different because you can have a solid white, which will be good for more stained water with a little chartreuse or something, or you can have I think it's called Clearwater shad or green shad or something. Green shad is
more translucent. Yeah.
Spot remover is always a good color. If you have a little bit of dingy water towards the clear end, but again, that's more of a translucent deal. And I mean, most of the time I match my trailers. I know sometimes you can, whatever.
Get funky. Yeah. I'm a big time trailer match person, like white, black.
Yeah.
Blue,
yeah.
black.
I've never.
Green pumpkin.
Yeah.
But I have one occasion where I don't. I have all black jackhammers with black blades, and I'll shove a green pumpkin trailer in there if they're on a bluegill spawn.
Mm-hmm.
Tail chartreuse.
I can see that. Especially as clear as y'all's water is up there.
Yeah.
And obviously, the clearer the water, the more that the color is gonna make a difference. And one thing you mentioned there that we didn't talk about was you said the black blade. The blade color can mean a lot. Like you're gonna have a black blade, a silver blade, a gold blade. You got the fire crawl that they've come out with now. They have a red blade on it. But I mean, again, that's
underlooked part is the blade color.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm big on gold. And I think that's just more where I live. Like gold just tends to get a bigger bite for some reason. And I've tested that many times, and you may not get near as many bites on a gold blade. It's and it's like that with a spinnerbait around here too. Like a gold blade for some reason just gets a little bit bigger bite.
I'm the same way. It's either gold or it's like painted black or green pumpkin. I want it
getting
a ton of light and flashy, or something very matte and muted down and looks as natural as possible. So yeah, I'm there with you. Ready to move on to bait number 2?
That's fine with me.
All right, what's number 2?
Number 2 is going to be, and this, I say you couldn't use this. This is a forward facing and not, back before it ever came out.
It's just not jig head minnow.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
So it could be anything but a jig head minnow.
Yeah, I mean a jerk bait is world renowned. Like, and so here's the thing with a jerk bait. We always thought it was a really good pre-spawn bait, and everybody would put them up.
Oh yeah,
well now it's like a staple. Like I'm gonna have 3 different ones tied on, 3 different depths, different colors, different size hooks. So obviously actually the 2 guys that come to my mind when I think of a jerk bait, and then I'm like, man, these guys throw a jerk bait all the time. Actually 3, another one. Van Dam, Hank Cherry, and Kelly J. Like they throw a jerk bait all the time before we ever even knew about live scope. So like they kind of were on to how good of a, like they realized a bass doesn't quit eating shad just because it goes up there and spawns. Like oh, it's a great pre-spawn bait, let's put it up. But obviously we found out that's not the case. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it is a great pre-spawn bait, and you can use it with forward facing, but you don't have to, because I mean there was obviously millions of dollars won without it. So, and I'm not going to claim to be the best jerkbait fisherman, but if I'm in a pre-spawn situation,
I'll tell you, you can catch them with the jerkbait. I watched it firsthand.
No live scope either.
Yeah, I just about set my rod down and said, "Had fun."
Yeah, let me watch this. Yeah. Acting like I knew what I was doing up there. But yeah, it's a really fun, but especially if you can get the cadence dialed in. And one thing I think that the forward facing has taught us, like we always thought, or I did growing up, like we got to figure out what the cadence is today. Like, is it jerk, jerk, pause for a long time, or so? And what I'm saying is, with the forward facing, we've learned almost every fish is different. Yeah. Like, there's not now I'm sure there's a cadence that works more times sometimes, but like every fish can be caught in a different way. Like you could be jerking it like consistently and stop it, and he runs up there and gets it, or it can be a twitch, twitch, pause, twitch, 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 and then like so they can be caught a whole lot of different ways. But most of the time, I would say pre-spawn you're going to be dealing with colder water, so it's going to be a little bit more of a slower retrieve. And you'll pick up on keys. Like if you're not fishing it with forward facing, you'll pick up on keys if they're biting it on the stop, or they're biting it when you go to jerk it again. But typically the success I've had with a jerkbait and pre-spawn is, around steeper type banks. And that'll be a lot more like beginning of pre-spawn. Like they're just starting to get, where they're going to be making their transition move to wherever they're going to spawn. So any type of bluff banks, bluff ends, grass edges, not necessarily, on just massive grass flats, but if like where some deeper ditches.
Where the break is.
That's right. And like I said, that's going to be more pertaining to like it's real cold, like, water temps in the mid 50s, low 50s, stuff like that. Or, post frontal stuff. It is down here, bud.
I just got to mess with it. I mean, we're talking offline and we're talking about cold, right? And you did mention one of your lakes you could probably walk across right now on ice.
100%.
Which is kind of comical, right?
Well,
like, how often does that happen? And
I'm not going to walk across it, but I did see a random Canadian goose standing out there, and he was on his feet was dry. Like he was standing in
was lost.
Yeah, he don't need to be around there. I can tell you that. Now, one side of the interstate is a refuge. The other side of the interstate is not a refuge. He was on the wrong side. I can tell him that. He may have been the lone survivor. I don't know.
So you're saying he was fixing to become goose soup?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
or something.
I mean, I don't know. I know a few people that's eaten goose, and they said it. I don't know.
I don't think it's very great.
No, I heard old boy one time on TikTok say that he was telling his wife they had cooked a goose or something. He said, I think I heard a goose could live to be like 41. He said, this one here has got to be 38 or 39. I mean, because it was so tough. I said, I probably don't want to eat no goose.
Yeah. Duck ain't bad, though. It's just a little fatty. Duck's not bad.
Duck meat?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, I probably ain't going to eat no duck meat either. I mean, I got a lot of buddies that duck hunt. That's a lot of work for a little bird.
Yeah. You ain't kidding.
I'll go kill a deer or something.
So what is what's your setup? Like everyone's got like, it seems like in that same range, like a 6'6" to 7 foot long rod. So, like, what is your jerkbait setup rod, reel, line, and then your favorite three colors?
Yeah, mine's a. I have a rod in my. I mean, obviously, all these will be in my line. It's a 6'9". It's a medium, regular action, which is kind of like a moderate. Um, it's very parabolic, which allows you to, one thing I think I noticed when we got, live scope was actually seeing what the bait was doing. If you haven't, I was never fortunate enough to have like a swimming pool to like test baits in and stuff, so I didn't really. I've learned a lot, literally being able to watch my bait because your bait moves a lot more than you think it does. Like
Oh
when
yeah.
you're twitching your rod. So that I used to have when I fished a jerk bait, I always had stiffer rods. I didn't realize how far the bait was actually moving. So when I designed this one, I made it to where the tip was very, very soft, where you could actually, if you get where you're kind of not paying attention and you're, if you're, jerking it pretty good or twitching it very hard, the bait's still not moving because the rod's giving a lot.
Yeah.
So that it was made for that. The handle is very short. One thing that really got on my nerves, and I don't have very long arms. I mean, I'm like
When it
5'8".
hit you in the elbow.
God, dude, that's the most annoying thing ever. and a lot of times, so everybody's like, oh, yeah, that's too picky. A lot of times in the pre-spawn, it's cold. You're going to be wearing jackets. You're going to be wearing rain suits.
It's
Well,
just
it's
hanging up on everything.
Oh
Oh,
my
the
God.
worst.
And your
Like-
back's already, shoulders are already hurting, and your forearms are hurting from freaking twitching that rod all day, and it gets aggravating. And so I made it as short as I possibly could to avoid that at all costs.
Might as well have made it a pistol grip.
Yeah, I mean, since we're old school fishing, got to have
Yeah.
a pistol grip.
Yeah, nothing makes me more mad. Like in the pre-spawn up here, it'll be like 45 degrees out, and you got the big thick. It's like hoodie weather, right? It's sunny, just a crisp wind, but you got like your big bibs on. Break down that wind, and you're going to fish that jerkbait, and the handles get caught in like your flap.
Oh yeah, where it dips in
because
right
they don't make any bibs that fit like comfortably, right?
That's
They're just
right.
kind of loose and hanging out. And it's like, oh come on! So I just throw the jerkbait rod down and fish something else. But
yeah, those rain suit designers aren't worried about. Man, I wonder if this guy can go throw this jerkbait with these.
they should make jerkbait friendly bibs. All right,
There you go.
We're on to
something. I did my best with the handle of the rod. If you ever get to try it or anybody picks one up, you'll notice you're like, man, I might can use this for that. But yeah, so that'll be the rod. Line size kind of just depends on the situation, the bait, and by bait I mean like what depth, jerk bait, how deep you're wanting it to get. But generally, like starting out, I'll either have 10 to 12 pound. I actually use the Sunline crank. It's a tight line that we make. It's got
Is
a lot.
The FC crank that's like that gray color.
Yeah. So the actual label on it, it'll be purple. Like but I don't know. I've come to really like. It's very soft. Like it's almost like throwing monofilament, but you're throwing. Obviously throwing fluorocarbon. But it has some type of coating on it that makes it very soft. It's very easy to cast because, I mean, I don't know if I'm sure everybody's thrown jerkbaits before. Most of the time it can be windy. They're hard to throw. This line just makes it a lot easier. It comes off the reel real easy. It doesn't want to, overrun bad like that, especially when it gets cold, that fluorocarbon tends to do. So that's one reason that I throw it. And again, obviously it's fluorocarbon. It's going to do what it's supposed to do as far as that goes. Reel, a 7-to-1 art reel, gravity, G7 or G8, just depends on which one I have on. But most of the time, always a 7. I don't like an 8. I feel like I pick up too much line too fast. I don't like a 6 because it don't pick up line fast enough. So a 7 is just always a good in between, good speed, keeps your cadence kind of natural, like you're not having to slow yourself down or speed yourself up. But yeah, and a jerkbait I've really come to like, obviously everybody knows the Mega Bass is really good. The Lucky Craft is the pointer is the all time good one.
Slept on now, like
it really is. Well, I was kind of tailing into that, and the Smithwick Rogue is good too. But we've made one at Arc that it's got the body of a modern. How should I put this? The body style looks like a modern jerkbait, but the action is like an old one. It's almost like an in between if you had a Mega Bass or a pointer. It's like if you kind of mended those two together. So how I feel like the mega bass has a real darting action, which, and I've caught fish on obviously on it in cold weather, but it seemed like that pointer always seemed to do better the colder it was, and the rogue. Well, they're more of like a side to side, almost like walking the dog or a rolling type deal as they went over. Well, that's kind of what this one does, but it's not quite as subtle as those. So you kind of have the best of both worlds. And if it gets real cold, you'll want to throw this one. If it obviously gets real hot, you throw another one. But that one for all around, and I had a little bit of like I got some prototypes on it. We tweaked some stuff. And again, I'm not saying that I'm some master jerkbait fisherman, but it's a really good one for the price point. And color wise, we've got some great colors, but basically almost like the vibrating jig deal. I want a solid color, a white, a natural, not a natural, but like a matte white, a matte brown, a matte, black. There's one we made. It's a black. I can't quite remember the name right off the top of my head, but it's matte. It's got a black back and like silver whitish sides is really good if the water's dirty or if it's cloudy. If you get in a clear situation and it's sunny, you want a more translucent color.
And you ever mess around with like the really flashy ones too?
Yeah, it seems like the flashy one's really good if they're real aggressive because you can bring one from a long way. Mm-hmm. Like if he ever, especially if you're dealing with like smallmouth or a small, yeah, I hate them things. Smallmouth or even a spotted bass. A spotted bass and a smallmouth are a herring eating spotted bass and a smallmouth are very similar. Like once they see something that catches their eye, like if they commit to it, they're gonna eat it. And from what I've seen smallmouth fishing in my few years, if he has decided he wants to eat it, you're not gonna get it away from him. And I think that's kind of what you get with the flashy ones. But I really think day in and day out you can get a natural color unless it's just blown out mud. And if you get it close to him, like you're liable to catch one. So that's kind of you can play with the suspend strips and if you need to get it down or get some bigger hooks on it, stuff like that. But that's all situational. Like you can't just it's hard to just say go throw this one and you're gonna catch some fish on it.
No, you better have 12 of them on the deck and just keep rotating until if you're in a fishy area, just figure out which fish wants to bite which one.
Yeah, for sure. And like that's a great point. You need to have a shallower one, like a 4 to 6, 7 foot, and then a +1, which is going to get you down to that 7 to 10, depending on. If you want to get it deeper, you can go to 8-pound line. If you want to, I mean, I've had situations where I've thrown a 4 to 6, depth diving one and put it on 18-pound line, like because I wanted it to get 2 foot deep.
Yeah.
So it's just that's all situational. But as far as just if you told me I had to have a bait like from February to April, or May, depending on where you're at, it's going to be a jerk bait for sure.
And now all year round, if you have forward-facing sonar, don't put it.
There is, like I said, there is probably 3 or 4 tied on in my boat all year round. The only thing I do, I put new line on it, tie it right back on, or change the hooks.
You're like, when I need this, it'll be ready to go.
Yeah, man. And you looking at that thing, you see one sitting about 4 foot down, you're gonna throw it at him. You don't twitch it down there anyway. He's either gonna come up to it or run away from it.
Or just do nothing at all.
Or just sit there. If he just sits there, it's probably a turtle.
Like, what are you, stupid?
Yeah.
All right. We're done with bait number 2. What is number 3?
Number 3, and these is probably not in any particular order. It's definitely going to be a jig, and I'm probably a little partial to it just because I grew up fishing. That's how I grew up fishing. Was literally the first bass I ever caught on a bait caster was flipping a jig. But I can just remember how many fish we've caught, big fish, pre-spawn, on a big jig. And when I talk about big jig, I'm talking about like a 5/8, 9/16, 5/8, 3/4. And the reason I think a bigger profile jig works better pre-spawn wise or colder water is, so the way that scientifically biologists will tell you, a bigger fish doesn't like to burn a lot of energy, whether it's real cold or real hot. Like they're basically the same thing in the fish's mind. Like they don't want to burn a lot of energy when it's hot because they just don't like. If you're a real big person, you don't want to go do a whole lot of stuff when it's 100 degrees outside. And when you're a bigger person, you don't want to go outside when it's cold either. Like you just don't want to burn energy. So I say that to say you get a big profile bait, like a big jig with a big, big trailer on it, big chunk. It's going to have a real gliding, falling action. And what that fish thinks is you have a 5 to 7 pound largemouth. I can go eat that one big bait and not have to eat for 3 or 4 or 5 hours instead of chasing around these little minnows or one or two little shad, burn all this energy and not get anything in return. Yeah. So it's kind of just like you're sitting there, you don't feel like going and chasing around all these French fries, and somebody just brings you a steak and just like drops it in front of you. You're probably gonna grab it. Like if
no
you're hungry.
Factor will ever say no to fries. It's bass and a jig, right?
I mean, that pretty much. I love. I'm a French fry connoisseur myself.
But, big fan.
Yeah,
big fan.
I mean, if I could catch them with no energy, that'd be fine. But when somebody just wants to sit a ribeye right in front of me, that's probably what I'm going to take. So that's kind of the thought process behind that for me. And that might have been a dumb analogy, but it makes sense if you really think about it. They can spend less energy, get more out of the meal instead of having to chase little things around. Basically, what it all boils down to.
Can I add something else into this point for you?
Well, you're the host. You can do whatever you want.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, I ain't no coach, but so one of my good buddies, he's big time. He's one of the guys I go steelhead fishing with up here. He went to ESF, so it's an environmental science and forestry school, and he was telling me, I don't know, a lot
smarter than me, a lot smarter.
Same, but I don't know if he was saying it was one of his professors talking about like aquatic biology and fish behavior in winter, or if he heard it on like a podcast somewhere. I don't remember the exact context of the conversation, but what he told me was in the wintertime, fish's vision actually decreases when the water gets cold, just like their metabolism. So when you throw something big in front of them, that big juicy ribeye or jig, they can actually see it better. So they know that it's food. And that's why they're more apt to eat something that's big in the wintertime.
Really?
So it kind of goes against all. Yeah, because people like get smaller, slower in the winter. And it's like, I'm going to go bigger. And then you think about it, like, think about out west and all the guys that are throwing like those 8 and 10 inch HUDs when the water's 40 degrees, right? And they're like, this is all we can get bit on. It's like, yeah, it's because it's all they can see.
Yeah. And I think it also
it's easier meal.
Yeah, I think it boils down to you might, let's say you want to go smaller and more finesse in the wintertime, you're probably going to catch more fish. You'll probably get more bites.
But you're not getting that big one.
I'm about to say, if you're not in a tournament situation, that's great. But if I go, and let's just say this. Let's say if I went out there and threw not a jig head minnow. Let's just say I went and threw a Ned rig, and I caught 10.
Are you ever going to throw a Ned rig?
I haven't thrown one in a long time.
Same.
It's been a minute. I didn't mind it, but now, why am I going to throw that thing out there? I just throw my minnow.
It's not a minnow show, Wes.
I hate that thing, dude. Guy's so stupid. I'm like glorified.
Hate it so much you can't stop talking about it.
Glorified crappie fishing. It's unbelievable. But so if let's just say it's a cold winter day pre-spawn and I can go catch 10 on a Ned rig and they're little buck bass, 2-pounders, whatever. Well, if I'm in a tournament situation, I would gladly go get 3 to 5 bites that are 4 to 6-pounders. So that's kind of where you're at. It just kind of depends on what you want to do. But yeah, that's me as a professional tournament angler. That is one of my go-tos. It's gonna be tied on. Actually, it's kind of like it's tied on, 12 months out of the year. Because I'm gonna find somewhere I can go flip that thing around. Now, I might not get a bite, but I'm gonna feel good doing it. I feel. But wintertime, it definitely tends to shine. All across the country. It's really good around these parts, even when it gets really hot. But it's just, I think it's more of our forage and what they kind of eat on a consistent basis. But from a highland reservoir, out to the Ozarks, like it's an Ozark staple, a big jig is. Even in Florida, a real big jig, 3/4, 1 ounce down there is really good. But we've made, Randall Tharp is a world renowned, jig fisherman. He grew up around here. Now lives in Florida. But he designed one. He let me use a couple of them as we were making them. But the one we make with it's a 5/8, and we're actually going to build a 3/4. But it's got a really unique head. It's got a good hook in it. It's got a good weed guard. He has some really good colors. He's got some old school, round rubber, brown and black and blue. That's basically the one. It's almost the same jig that I grew up fishing with. We've just really, tweaked some things that made it a lot more with the technology we have. A lot better hook, a lot better weed guard. Keepers are good. But in the pre-spawn time of year, there's only one trailer I'm throwing. I'm throwing a Zoom Big Salty Chunk. Like that's the only, and I'm hanging it. I'm not threading it up on there. If I see somebody thread a Big Salty Chunk up on the jig,
you're slapping them.
I'm probably gonna
laugh.
I'm not gonna laugh because I've seen some bass caught on it, but it just doesn't look right to me. Like it just, and I can't imagine like somebody will get on here watch this, and I'm probably like, I've caught a 10-pounder doing that. Well, good for you. It probably would have ate a lizard too. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was gonna eat whatever you threw in there, but just it looks more natural to me just hanging it on there, and it's no secret that. That's I've said it many times in articles and interviews and on podcasts. That's 99% of the time that's the trailer that I use.
Let me ask you this one, because some people will do it one way and some will do it the other.
The flat
part of the chunk. Are you going chunk like thick part down or the flat down?
I'm gonna leave it up to personal preference. I'm not gonna put that one out there because there's a reason it goes one way or the other.
Fair enough.
But with all the podcasts and the interviewing and the YouTube channels, you got to keep some stuff like.
Oh, getting tight-lipped on me, huh?
You got to give as much as you can, but I mean, at the end of the day, man, I'm out there trying to make a living, so I need every advantage I can for him to bite my cricket.
All right, so just let people keep doing it wrong.
Well, you can do it either way you want to. I will say this:
it'll catch fish.
It works either way.
Yeah,
that will be. It really doesn't matter. Some of the time.
Some of the time, all the time.
60% of the time, it works half the time.
Love it.
So, I mean,
good math.
Take with that what you will. That's some Alabama math. Roll Tide.
Speaking of Roll Tide, how are they looking for next year as we get off the bandwagon?
I'm gonna ride with them until they die. Like that's just kind of how it's gonna be. But I will say this: it is. I don't mind our coach. Like I like him. I really like him as a guy. You can tell that Saban is no longer running the ship. But we had a
different
good
strokes for different folks.
100%. Like they're two totally different people. I don't think there's anything wrong with DeBoer. He just has a different and I mean once I think he may get his culture set up there. I think everything will be fine. But and I don't think it's just Alabama. And I mean, everybody knows this with the NIL stuff. There will not be any more dominant, dynasties anymore because the whole reason Bama was so good is if they wanted to play their third string would go start anywhere else in the country. Like
it's wild.
They were 2 or 3 deep, 4 and 5 star. Well, now your backup's a 2-star. He's a true backup.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, back to jig talk. What's your setup? Rod, reel, line. And then I'm not even gonna ask you colors. I'm just gonna say it's probably green pumpkin, black.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Pre-spawn wise, I'm heavy on black and blue.
You can't beat it.
Yeah, it's just a big fish catcher. Like from Denny Brower to Hackney to Tharp, like just black and blue with a black chunk or a blue chunk. Like flipping blue, black sapphire. Blue sapphire blue chunk, like just a dark jig is normally better that time of year, and I could not tell you why. You may get more bites on a brown one, but if you take bites on a black and blue one that time of year, normally they're your big females. And I have one theory. I have no idea how to prove this. I don't know that you ever would. But I feel like it has a lot to do with crappie or white perch, whatever you call them, wherever you're at. And I don't know why. I have that. Just where a lot of times where you catch those real big ones is places where you could see somebody fishing for crappie, like maybe under a deep dock or like a deep spot in a bluff, something like that. Like somewhere where those big fish, it's a big meal, like it's one bite. It's there's a lot of protein in it, and I have to chase them around.
They're usually by themselves too, aren't they?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. Now I have seen it before where you now I'll say this: when you say by yourself, I have in the past I've found banks that were like ideal situations, like sun's beating on it, current's hitting, it's outside of a pocket. Like you catch one there at 8 o'clock, you go fish around, don't catch something, come back there, catch two big ones. Come back right before the day ends, catch one more. Like catch 4 off of one bank in the wintertime or pre-spawn. And that's just because they're moving. And like you found the perfect setup. Like, so I mean, there's situations like that. But yeah, black and blues, I'm heavy on black and blues starting out. And then, I'll have some browns and greens, especially, and a lot of those will have some orange in them, or I'll dye the tails orange just because of the crawfish that time of year have orange pinchers. And it's just, it may matter, it may not. I don't know. It matters to me. So that's why I do it.
Confidence is king.
That's what it is. I mean, it really is. 90% of fishing is having confidence what you're throwing out there. But setup wise, I use a 7.6 heavy. Obviously, again, got one in the line. It's called FAFO, and that is flip around and find out for all the people watching. Don't want to get that misconstrued with anything or construed however you say it.
People can think how they want.
Hey, it may end up being what they think it is. Like they can do that too. I mean, hey, may have been named for that. Who knows? I don't know. Kind of stuff.
We'll leave that.
Hey, you can fish around and find out. You can flip around and find out. You can, let the imagination take over. But yeah, it's a 7.6 heavy. It's a pretty stiff rod. It's got a real good backbone. Fast tip. It tips soft enough that you can kind of pitch around and actually pitch. Like not, flipping is, old school pulling the line. Pitching is what we call flipping now. So pitching around, you can be pretty accurate with it, even with it being a 7.6. Line wise, on that big of a jig, normally I'm at the smallest 25. I flip 25 shooter from Sunline. I'll even have situations where I'll go up to 30. And it's not really a strength thing. It's more of a, I hate to be saying this, it's a rate of fall thing you can do with your line. Now, if you get into some real clear situations, you can use 20, but you're on a 5/8 or a 3/4 ounce jig on 20-pound line. It's gonna be like a rock. Like you're gonna be wanting to get it on the bottom. Where if I'm gonna be fishing a jig truly on the bottom, I'm probably not gonna be using a flipping jig. I'll probably move over to a casting jig or a ball headed jig, something like that in the wintertime. But most of the time, rate of fall is what triggers your bites, flipping, and different size lines can change the rate of fall, along with trailers. But again, like I said, I want to keep the same trailer. So I will switch up my line sizes to determine on how fast my jig falls.
This is the perfect episode for those who are tuning in to put it on in the car while the wife is listening when she's berating you about how many rod and reel combos you have. And Wes is telling you how to get away with it to buy more. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you got to have it. Like, I mean, just go on there and say, I need to find Wes Logan's FAFO rod just because it sounds cool.
Yeah, and I need some shooter with 25 and 30 and 20 and
100%.
100 different sizes of jig.
Because you don't need to be out there unspooling your reel during the day because your jig's not falling right. So you got to have all these at hand because
exactly
we only have so much time to fish. Like you can't be wasting any time. Why you got to have multiple setups? Everybody said, why you got so many rods? Well, I got a lot of baits I want to throw.
Got a lot of baits, and there's a lot of situations.
I need a lot of situations, especially pre-spawn with no jig head minnow.
Yeah. Now, if you want to throw a jig head minnow, you just take one rod, one bait, and you're good to go, and leave everything else.
Yeah. Right. pretty much. You basically need two size jig heads, one with a small hook, one with a big hook, one with a big minnow, and one with a little minnow.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here and keep it short and sweet, right? But this is the Omnia Juice of the Week, and I forgot to mention anything that's available on Omnia that's arc related or any baits we talked about will be listed down below. But Wes, the Omnia Juice of the Week, right? Honorable mention bait or technique that may not get enough love in the pre-spawn, and why?
Hey, honorable mention, and I say it's honorable mention. It's always in the lineup. It's always in the lineup. I'm talking about 365 all months of the year, from Canadian border to Okeechobee to California. Definitely gonna have a swim jig on. And it's just, there's certain situations in pre-spawn where, it may be warming up during the day. You've got to, shallow cove or pocket that's warmed up a little bit warmer than everything else. You might have old big and done slid up there in some shallow grass or around a tree. And I mean, it would work the same with a spinner bait, but why throw a spinner bait when you can throw a swim jig on braid? Like, I mean, kind of what I'm with. But yeah, definitely a swim jig. And that time of year, I normally just throw a white or a black, or black and blue, white or black and blue, match the trailers. I have obviously I'm gonna throw mine. I have a 3/8. I have a half, a 3/8, and a 5/16. I'm real keen on throwing a 5/16 that time of year with a little bit bigger trailer, a Zoom Super Speed Crawl, which has real big claws. And the only reason I like to do that is because it basically that 5/16 will kind of hover around whatever you want it to. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, if it's the coldest I've ever caught a bass on a swim jig water was 50. No, I'm sorry, not 54, 45. My dyslexic kicked in. Sorry about that. Got them crossed up right there. We were at Smith Lake and the water was 45 degrees and it come out there like it had never seen it. But I say that to say it was not a pumping like bringing it to me like real fast. Like it was kind of I got it by a limb or a tree, part of a laydown, and I just kind of let it flutter right there, and it something in it triggered that fish. But when the water gets that, and you're not obviously that's the only one I caught. Like maybe it was just an anomaly. I caught some more that day on different baits, but when you're dealing with a 50-degree water temp, 54, 52 around here in a pre-spawn, you're not wanting it to be burning most of the time for a fish to come up and get something, like where you can see it, like the way I like to fish it, like, the shape.
You almost want to hold it right above their face.
Correct. Like just kind of slow, like, hey, there's something that might be about to die. Like, let me run up there and get it real quick. It's not like there's one crashing through the grass. Like, I'm going to go over there and chase it down 10 feet away. It's not going to happen. But you can get it on certain – you can see where they may be set up, and put it right over their head or bring it right in front of their face and just slow it down a little bit. Let them get a decent look at it. Like you said, like your buddy said, let them get a good look at it. And that big profile, that big chunk allows them to do that. And, it can cause some really big fish in the pre-spawn on swim jig. But it's not going to be a staple like that I'm going to know going into the day, like, hey, this is what I'm going to go do. It's very situational, but it can lead to some very big bites for sure.
Absolutely. I love that. It's a good honorable mention, but not really an honorable mention.
It's the funnest. I just posted something on. I think I put it on my story. It's the funnest bite you can have fishing. Like
yeah, you love it.
It's addicting. It's like a drug to me. It's like bad. Like because here's my problem. If I get one bite on it, I think I'm gonna win the tournament. Like I was like, I can outfish everybody out here doing this. I'm gonna find them. The majority of the time, it was a fluke. But I'm gonna try it. Like I'll burn the freaking house down trying to find it.
Oh man, I've gotten on a couple swim jig bites, and I'm like, oh, this is so fun. And like an hour later, they're gone and they won't touch it. I'm like, or the next day, I'm like, I know what I'm gonna win this tournament. I'm like, oh, now I guess I'm just gonna be scraping the bottom, flipping it all day because they're there. They just won't chase.
Oh yeah, I'm bad about like. If I get one bite, I'm bad with doing it for the frog too. If I get one bite, I keep thinking like the next 5 minutes I'm gonna find one. The next 5 minutes, the next cast.
Next, it's 4 hours.
You're like, you're 4 hours in and you're still thinking, well, that next cast. I'm serious, like an addict. Like I'm just looking for the next hit. Like I'm like,
where's my fix?
Yeah, I gotta find it. Like, and the bad thing about, especially with a swim jig, sometimes you'll get around some pressured fish and they won't eat it, and like 3 or 4 of them have missed it. And you keep thinking, what next one's gonna get it? Like he's gonna get it. He's gonna eat it. Well, next thing you know, you've had 12 bites and caught one. But you saw 25 pounds. Like, well, I seen them.
I know they're there.
I skin hooked one of them in the chin and got him in the boat. That's pretty much where we're at today. But I had a hell of a time trying to catch them.
Hey, sometimes just seeing them is the best part of practice.
Yeah. It's fine when it's in practice. You better not have it to happen on Derby Day, though.
And it happens too many times on Derby Day.
Yeah. Be going up there to see Mercer. One bass, one alive, 4 pounds. What happened? I don't know.
They just didn't bite. They didn't want my cricket.
Seen a bunch of them. Must have been throwing the wrong color. I'm going to go try another color tomorrow.
And you're already in the bottom of the hole, so you're screwed.
Yeah. Well, I got to lose. Go have fun.
Heck yeah. Well, Wes, I appreciate it. An hour later, I said it'd take like a half hour, so I
definitely didn't take a half hour.
Yeah.
That's on me.
Yeah, it's fine. Great answers. I hope everyone enjoyed this. Just hang out for 1 second as I wrap this up, and then Yeah, man. Thank you again for coming on. It was good talking with you. So
Enjoyed it. Maybe I didn't bore people enough, but I don't know. It's some pretty good stuff.
I mean, I was falling asleep, so it was perfect.
I figured.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Wes, and I'm going to wrap it up here now with everyone, and we'll chat soon, buddy.
Appreciate it, buddy.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode here on the Lure Lab. As I'm having technical difficulties here with all the new buttons, we have a new layout here showing that we're presented by Omnia. But I promise, give me an episode or two, and I will get it correct if you're watching on YouTube. But anyways, that was Wes Logan joining us, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro and MPFL Angler. Going to be cool to see the two tours this year and the difference between forward-facing sonar and not, and talking about his top 3 baits for pre-spawn fishing that is not a jig head minnow. And as I stated halfway through the episode, that anything that we chatted about today that is available on Omnia will be linked down below. So make sure you go down, hit those links, and go check out the baits on Omnia. If you're new here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or MP3 platform that allows you to leave a review, please do so. The Lure Lab, it allows the Lure Lab and the Serious Angler Network to be seen by more people who are looking to learn more about bass fishing. But until next Saturday, we will see you then.